So, hello everybody, and welcome back to TMR's Master Advisor series. Today is September 9th, and this is episode 37. We have Kareem George back here today to talk about client outreach, but I just want to run us through a few announcements first before we get into it. The first is that to remind everyone that the chat on your bottom right is open, and we'll grab questions as we go along today. Don't be shy, please. I'll do my best to keep an eye on the chat throughout the conversation, and we're going to grab as many questions as we can. Also, toggling into speaker view on your top right on Zoom is probably going to be the best viewing experience for everybody. I also want to remind everyone that this session will be fully recorded and available on demand on our YouTube page, youtube.com/travelmarketreport, and on our training page. You can subscribe to that YouTube page to be notified whenever we publish updates. You can subscribe, like videos, send comments there, and that's a big help for us to keep growing this community. I want to say thank you to all who have already subscribed and sent along comments. We read them all, and we very much appreciate all those interactions. The latest episode of our podcast check-in is also live there, and this one is with Uniworld's Ellen Bettridge, and it's a conversation that I really enjoyed. I just want to give everyone a heads up. Next up after Ellen is an interview with Royal Caribbean's Vicky Freed, so please keep a lookout for that. That podcast is very much a passion project for the whole team here at TMR, so please, if you haven't checked it out yet, it's available on that YouTube page, and it's also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Okay, so let's get to today's guest and today's topic. Today, I'm very happy to welcome Kareem George back to Master Advisor. Kareem is the principal at Michigan's Cultural Traveler. Kareem is a past guest on this series. And again, you can rewatch his first session on that YouTube page. And he's very much one of the stars of the travel trade. Most recently, Kareem was elected to serve as director at large on ASA's board of directors. He's here to talk about how to reconnect with clients as travel continues to reopen. And I want to say thank you so much, Kareem, for joining us today. And it's really a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be back. Thanks, Dan.
Well, I do want to get into the topic of the day, which is reconnecting with clients, but I did want to get your take on some news we've had over the past couple of weeks. I want to ask about the European travel restrictions that have been rolled out this week after the EU's most recent recommendations for U.S. travelers. We've seen updates from a number of countries, including the Netherlands, start to put extra requirements on American travelers. And I'm just wondering, how is this impacting your business? Are you hearing a lot about this from your clients?
Sure. I mean, it's something that's impacting all of us. And unfortunately, it's led to a lot of confusion initially. And I'm certainly hearing from clients. And as I see clients out, as we'll get into later in the session, they're asking, can we go here? Can we go there? How have things changed? So I think, as always, it's re-emphasizing our value, that we're really here to facilitate and help people travel safely and to stay on top of all of those guidelines. So I've just been transparent with clients. I've let them know that we're all partnering and working on this together with our suppliers, with the hotels, with the airlines to figure out the best information in the most timely fashion to get out to them. So it's building the relationship stronger, to look at it, in a half glass full sort of way, but it certainly is a challenge for all of us.
And I just want to, what are your clients asking you when they're seeing these headlines? I know the EU headline was a particularly powerful headline because it seemed as if that cut off travel to Americans, which wasn't the case at all. Are you seeing a lot of people just fairly being confused about the new rules, or are you seeing a lot of people wanting to cancel, wanting to protect their trip, things like that?
Well, thankfully, it's just confusion. I would say our clients are certainly jumping to the conclusion out of the confusion that we can't travel there anymore. And that's the hardest part, especially when they have trips planned or you're in the planning process and all of a sudden we get an announcement and it's, oh, I guess we can't move further with this trip. And it's, no, these are how the rules have changed and this is what has exactly been impacted. And I think they just need that bit of reassurance, because the conversations we've had and our advisors have had, once we have those initial conversations and can outline, in many cases, what have been minimal changes, they say, oh, that's fine. I was planning to do a PCR test anyway, just in terms of being safe and making sure that I'm, not carrying and not showing symptoms and then getting there and showing symptoms. So in many cases, the clients are prepared and know what to do anyway, but it's great for them to have the reassurance from a trusted advisor.
I'm glad we got that take from you, Kareem, because I think a lot of clients and a lot of agents are having that issue too with these headlines coming out. And I know we're sort of we feel as if we're in the latter stages of the pandemic, but I think this is going to be a recurring theme, especially heading into 2022.
Yeah, these curveballs keep coming and we just have to be ready for them. And it's just bringing our clients closer to us, just trying to think positively about it. I find that they're coming to me more. I'm getting more of the unsolicited text messages, calls, people just calling and asking, can you help me sort this out? So that's one positive at least we can take from it, but it is frustrating and challenging.
Yeah. So let's get into the topic of the day, which is reconnecting with clients. And when we spoke earlier last summer, when you were a guest on this series, we spoke about how to facilitate client relationships with in-person meetings and things like that. So I'm glad we're on sort of a similar topic today. But I want to ask you about your philosophy when you're talking about connecting or reconnecting with clients. Is that something that has traditionally been a big part of your business, especially pre-COVID, especially when things were normal? Is that something you made sure that you did on a regular basis?
Yes, for sure. I mean, the personal relationships are key. And I think with all of our clients, and my advisors would agree, it really has to come from a place of authenticity and really a caring and curiosity about the client, about their travel preferences, about what they're trying to accomplish and see, really taking the time to get to know them as a person from a really authentic, caring place. And they can sense that. And when you do that, it's not work, it's just a continuing and growing relationship, a professional one, but still one that's very fulfilling and dynamic and changes like any other relationship.
Yeah, and I know that it serves a specific purpose for you, and that not only it builds a relationship, but sometimes it will help you reconnect with clients who maybe have fallen off the radar a little bit. And I want to talk about specifically what you do and what some advice you have for our advisors on the call about what they can do to sort of be a little bit more proactive when they're reaching out to clients. I want to get right into it and talk about your top five methods of reaching out, or top five unique methods of reaching out that you think maybe a lot of the advisors on the call may not be aware of or may not have be thinking about when they're doing their business.
Sure. Well, I think probably the most obvious and the most complicated, given where we are right now, even still today, is just getting together, whether it's for lunch, whether it's for dinner, whether it's for drinks. It's extending that invitation to a client, even if it isn't directly related to a trip that they have told you they wish to plan or that they had spoken to you pre-pandemic, but just reaching out and saying, how are you doing? Uh, are you getting together with friends and family again yet? If you are, share how you're approaching that. Would really love to see you and reconnect. Really, enjoyed our past conversations about X or Y, and really see if you can see them face to face. And that's probably been the top thing that I've been doing now that many more people are vaccinated, many more people are comfortable getting together. And I've been getting lots of positive feedback to that.
Yeah.
And I've also, surprisingly, in some cases, and pleasant surprise it is, clients are reaching out to me oftentimes as well, saying, we'd really love to get together. We'd really love to see you. We've seen that you've been traveling and we'd like to talk to you about what that experience has been like. So that's been number one.
Well, I just can I jump in there, Kareem?
Yeah,
So
please.
I know you're in Michigan. I know you have a lot of local clients, but you serve a lot of clients who are well outside of a short drive to grab a cup of coffee. I mean, what do you have that same philosophy with them too? I'm sure it's more difficult to meet them in person, but I mean, what are your plans for that kind of client?
Sure, that's a great follow-up. And yes, same philosophy, always great to get together. Zoom has been excellent for that. So I've done lots of Zoom check-ins with folks, but also, especially this spring and summer and into the fall, I actually have been getting in the car, getting on a plane, and visiting people, believe it or not. And it's been great just from a relationship and professional standpoint. But I find that in many of those cases, I can think to some of them most recently when I was in Maine, and also in Boston, it's opportunities for clients and friends. Often the lines can get blurred when you get deeper into those relationships. Invite others in. They want to show you off. I feel as though we're very much, some of us, many of us are very much unicorns these days because some of us have traveled internationally already multiple times, have traveled throughout the United States, and most of the population hasn't. So I found that when I've visited clients, I've been, the center of attention at dinner parties. Or most recently in Maine, I was in Maine several weeks ago, and I actually bumped into a group of like 6 clients at a dinner. It was just unbelievable, just seeing them out and
Wait,
and
was
having
it
fun.
an accident that you bumped into them?
Yes,
No,
yes.
it's that's incredible because it's not like you're a regular at restaurants or bars in Maine.
No, and we didn't exchange itinerary information. So I mean, we're those that are traveling again are kind of all over the place this summer. So, oh, I'm going to Maine this summer. Yeah, so am I. That kind of thing happens all the time. But when you get there and you hear your name, someone calling your name, and you look over your shoulder
Yeah.
and you're like, what are you doing here? So, so that's
Yeah.
been great.
Yeah, and I mean I know there's a lot of clients who may not be super comfortable meeting in person right now. I mean, is that where Zoom can come in and things like that can come in and maybe strengthen that connection just by having any kind of face-to-face time you can have?
Exactly. And also, I found that a lot of those relationships and interactions have evolved. So, for instance, with some of our clients that we're very close to, I remember early on doing some face-to-face meetings still, but wearing masks, being outside with, standing heaters, and then evolving seriously, and then evolving to a place where, we're in my home and we're having drinks. So it really is personal. You absolutely have to respect folks' boundaries. Something else that often can work is if there are bigger community events, whether it's we have a Labor Day roundup here in town, or there are food and wine festivals. Sometimes there are events like this that people will go to, and I make it really a point to attend as many community events as I can because that's a lot, creates a lot of occasions to just softly bump into people. And it takes the pressure away of, a focused one-on-one, but you really still are getting to see them in an element where they've placed themselves there, they're comfortable, and those interactions have been very meaningful this summer and this spring as well for me.
I just want to ask before we get into method number two, and we have some questions in the chat about emails and things like that, and I want to address those too. But I mean, when you bump into a client, are you just, I mean, are you just trying to continue that personal relationship with them? Or are you just trying to have a conversation? Do you have any tips about advisors who are running into their clients in towns or things like that, to keep a conversation going or to continue that connection and then sort of reconnect and facilitate this face-to-face meeting?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. And I think as an advisor, you become very skilled at reading body language in particular. So if you bump into someone and they're very open and very talkative, then you can mirror that back. I often think of it as a mirror. So you kind of mirror back what you're getting, and then you kind of probe a little to see, if I put this out, what am I getting back? So I often take the lead, with how close they're actually getting, if they want to introduce me to who they're with, and kind of take their lead on how long that interaction is going to go. But I also always try to err on the side of, brevity, especially when it's in a public situation when they're with others, because you want to be respectful of that space that they're in. But it's been fun and interesting each time, and it's always starting out with the awkward. Are we gonna hug? Are we gonna
Yeah.
bump? Are we just gonna wave? And that's always a nice icebreaker when you're seeing some folks out for the first time. Just the comfort level.
Yeah, exactly. And I bumped into you, Kareem, when we were together in Chicago at the ASA Global Convention, and it was, yeah, it was a similar icebreaker. It's how comfortable or both are we with physical contact. So it is. Everyone's going through the same thing. The pandemic is a shared experience for everyone, and it is an excuse to open up that conversation.
Yeah, yeah, it really is.
So let's get into number two. What's your number two method of reaching out or reconnecting with the clients?
Yeah, so two we already touched on, so I'll go back to it quickly and then we can move on to number three. But two really is Zoom, the Zoom
Yeah.
platform. And I find that it's really helpful for small groups. So if you have small groups of clients that know each other, or families, or groups that you've put together in the past where you want to just do kind of a reunion call where you all get together, check in, especially if you're in different geographic locations. But then also for those clients that are not in driving distance, that are a bit further away, and you just say, is there a weekend this month where we might be able to connect? Or is there a weekday evening that we can connect? So Zoom's been really helpful for that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
mhm,
exactly. And what we spoke about before, the cost of entry to Zoom is very low. It's people are very comfortable with it now, so it is a great method to continue those relationships.
yeah.
We can get on to so we can move on to number three.
Yeah, and I guess number three we touched on too, which is the community events. So I've really made a big point of seeking out, what's going on in the local community, and to give some specific examples for those listening, restaurant openings or reopenings,
Okay.
uh, new happy hour type of situations, new hotels. There have been several new hotels, opening despite the pandemic. There's actually a local hotel here where I'm in the process of trying to figure out a happy hour type of scenario just for our clients, where we can maybe do something monthly or every other month, where we say we're gonna, taste this, come between 5 and 6, and just interact, as you're comfortable.
Yeah.
Concert events, especially during the nicer months, there have been several outdoor concerts. I've been going to those and bumping into people.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that seems like an opportunity not only to reconnect with clients you know, but it seems like an opportunity to source new clients or introduce yourself to people you're not super familiar with. Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
And I
And the
mean, do you
existing,
go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, the existing clients and relationships that you bump into there can help with that, because it can be an excellent referral source, because they're seeing you, they're reconnecting. If they haven't traveled already, they want to, and almost inevitably, the person that they're with that may be a great opportunity for them to have a vetted advisor, a vetted trusted advisor that can be a resource to them.
Yeah, and I know everyone has spoken about the pent up demand, and just at the beginning of this call, we spoke about the confusion surrounding travel. Like people are anxious to travel, and a lot of people aren't just unsure of how they can do it. And I'm sure running into a travel advisor at a happy hour or a hotel opening is a good way to get your travel plans on track.
Yeah, they want your business card, they want your phone number, so you just have to be ready for that, of being the unicorn that everyone wants to pet and touch and find out what's going on.
Yeah, so I want to get to number four, but we did have a bunch of comments that I held
Sure.
off on, and I want to get to those too.
Yep, please.
Um, or Rhonda says the simple phone call is just to say hi. A personal email, not a email blast to touch base as well is what she uses.
Exactly.
Joy
Hi,
says
Rhonda, by the way.
Joy says she's calling and emailing clients more. She's more successful on the phone than on email. And I'm
Mhm.
sure that's something we'll speak about a little bit
Yep,
later too.
yep,
Beth works with a lot of school groups, so as school is restarting, she reached out with an email to teachers welcoming back to the new year and wishing them well for the school year. Again, another finding an excuse or a reason to reach
yep,
out is always being creative and things like that.
yep.
And then I'll get one more, and then we'll move on. Denise
Sure.
Wiggins, a former guest on this series, says she sends personal notes of Let's Travel cards to clients with a Starbucks gift card enclosed. Prompts clients to reach out with a message, phone, voice, text, Facebook messages. Who doesn't love getting mail? I think the surprise of receiving it is always fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a
Um,
perfect segue into number four, because I was going to talk about mailings, because for the most part, we're getting magazines and bills in the mail. The magazines can be exciting for the most part, the bills not so much. So when you have a packet or a card from someone, it really goes a long way and makes a big difference. And something in particular that we've been doing throughout is magazines. So whether it's an article that you rip out or photocopy, or depending on how much one wants to invest in this, you can buy the magazine, whether it's Travel and Leisure or Condé Nast or something else, National Geographic. But taking the time and sending that magazine and clipping the particular article that relates to that client and having a personal card and note in there and sending it. I'm always really excited when I receive like little packets in the mail, because that's really, really rare to get.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always get calls back right away from clients when they receive those.
Yeah, it seems like a client would realize you went out of your way to make their day a little better, or to let them know you're thinking of them.
Mhm, exactly.
Yeah.
And
And
something I like to do as well is send postcards. So it's a bit of an obsession, an unhealthy obsession with me. Is when I travel, I like to buy postcards, and I now have this crazy just collection of postcards sitting around. But during the pandemic, I literally have been going through them and organizing them by destination. And as I know of clients that just went to one of those destinations before the pandemic or want to go, I've gone to the post office, I've gotten the 20-cent stamps or whatever they are, and I'll just make an exercise of writing 3 or 4 sentences and sending a postcard. And it's so random, but it really gets people's attention. And they're like, first of all, how'd you get this this postcard? And second of all, how nice of you to think about me, to remember that and to do that.
has that led to any sales recently, or any bookings? The postcard idea.
It's a good question. I can't directly attribute it, but I know I have some clients going to the Amalfi Coast in a few, actually next month now. And I know they got one of those postcards with, I remember the little shell stamp, 20-cent stamp that I put on it, several months ago, but I was in touch with them maybe 2 months ago now, and they went through a barrage of different trips. So did the postcard spark something? Maybe.
Yeah, it was. I mean, we had Denise talk about a $5 Starbucks card, and I guess the cost of a postcard is probably somewhere between mailing it and your time taking it to the post office. It's probably somewhere. It's not. It's probably somewhere around there, $3 to $5. It's not a
Yeah.
huge. It's not a huge investment to make.
Yeah, and the Starbucks idea is genius. I mean, really, there's one everywhere,
Yeah.
literally. There's something for everyone there, and it's just really thoughtful and nice. Something else I'd advise, our colleagues to do is to network, or as we network with other professionals, in particular other sales professionals, see what they're doing. One of those sorts of people in my community is our realtor, and she always does the most creative things. And I remember this spring, she sent a nice handwritten note with a car wash voucher to me, just saying, hope things are going well, that you have a nice spring planned. We're all freshening up and getting cleaned up, enjoy this voucher. And again, we're all hopefully washing our cars. I don't wash mine enough. But it's something that's really useful and really thoughtful. And here I am telling all of our colleagues about this. It really made quite an impact. And I'm going to steal the idea for winter here in
Yeah.
Michigan. Is during the dead of winter, send some car wash vouchers saying, get your car cleaned up so we can plan your trip and get you to the airport to get out of the snow.
Yeah, it's an incredible personal touch, the car wash idea too, because it is something we all need, but maybe something we don't do much. But then you drive past a car wash every day, and suddenly you realize your advisor or your agent or your realtor mailed you a coupon. It's
Yeah.
very easy to be very thankful about something that small.
Yeah, in New York, it's probably more expensive, but at least here in the Midwest, you can still get like a $6 or $7 car wash. So, do that for some of your top clients. It goes a long way.
Yeah, and we have we're getting a bunch of client of comments in back in the chat, and Paula said She sent out a postcards for a bridal show she was doing on Monday night. Denise mentioned that she's a marketing budget set aside each year for purposes of what we just spoke about.
Yeah, it's great.
Mark says the postcard idea has a nice nostalgia feel to it, travel memories that you want to have in the future again. And there's a lot of good comments about the car wash voucher idea. So I'm sure everyone on this call will be able to poach that idea from the
I
Reels for You
hope
that
I
Kareem
hope
did.
so. We can start a trend, and we're helping people drive cleaner cars.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's move on. We have about 20 minutes left. Please, again, if there's any questions or comments, drop them in the chat. It's great. It's great to hear from everybody. If you have any ideas of your own, please drop them in the chat too, and I'll do my best to read them out loud. But Kareem, do we want to move on to the next idea?
Yeah, sure. And this has been touched on a bit already. I call it the thinking of you email. And literally every week I'll put together a list of maybe 10 clients that I've not been in touch with. I also do this with social media accounts, in particular with Facebook,
Yep.
with friends that maybe I've not connected with, in a quick messenger, thinking of you, hope you're doing well, share something personal that's going on with me, whether it's haven't left my house in a week going crazy, or just got back from Maine. But that sort of thing really goes a long way and takes less than 30 seconds, because I know we're all being mindful of managing our time too, but I found that really has a good ROI on it, less than 5 minutes, and just sending those few sentences. And I know we all get a lot of email, especially now during the pandemic, with all the announcements and things like that, and suppliers refreshing us on their openings, what's going on. And I've been repurposing some of those as well, as I see things that come across that may be of interest to a client. Many of them are already in a format that's easy to forward. If not, again, it takes minimal time and effort. But I remember just last week, have some clients that have been good backroads clients, and I got information on the backroad strips coming up, and just forwarded that on. This came across my inbox, thought of you immediately, hope you're doing well.
Yeah.
Still haven't heard from that person, but I put it out there. And that person was someone beginning of the pandemic that reached out to me proactively. So it's funny to see how those dynamics change and shift.
Well, I did want to ask about email because we had a bunch of comments in the beginning of this conversation about emails, because again, you mentioned it's not a huge investment. It's free, and it just costs your time, and it's a very limited amount of time. But I'm wondering your experience with having your emails not being opened or being ignored. I mean, do you have any tips or tricks or advice for advisors who want to get a better return on their email investments? Any tips for making them personal, for reaching out at times of the day, for just being specific about things? Anything like that?
Sure. I think brevity, especially for those first emails, is key. I know for myself personally and from clients, if you get something that's really too much, it's a bit overwhelming, and you feel an obligation that your reply also has to be of the same, thoughtfulness. So again, I try to be intentional and give myself 4 lines really. So it's like a greeting, hello, how are you? It's I hope you're doing well. It's something personal about me, and then asking how they're doing. And that's it, keeping it brief, always ending with would love to hear from you, or been thinking about you. And I find that the response to those has been great, and it's been mixed too, mixed in that some will write back quickly, just a few sentences as well. But then others really will take the time to write back thoughtfully in a long message, which, as the advisor, I feel that there is then the obligation that you have to reciprocate that. So yes, it's good to maybe have a method and to have a system of reaching out to a certain amount of clients a week with quick emails, but be ready that if you get those 2-page emails back, it's really critical that you respond with the same thoughtfulness that you received.
Yeah. So I guess what you mentioned would be brief at first. Don't open the conversation with a long
Mhm.
text, and make sure it's something personal too. Make sure there's something there for them to latch on to or to connect with.
Mhm. And share pictures too. A lot of times we're emailing from our phones, or even if you're, on a computer and you have access to your photo gallery, if you have pictures with that particular client or from a recent trip of yours or just something you've been doing recently, that's always really personal and really nice. Just think about it. When I think about it, I don't get a lot of emails from folks with pictures, and that just adds another element of interest and shows that you've taken the time to personalize it.
Yeah.
It really, differentiates the email that they're receiving.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, I'm sure everyone on the call has multiple email addresses, Outlook, Gmail, and things like that. And when you do get an attachment, you do get the attachment notification on the email, and it's an easy way to make it stand out.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then if it's a
Um,
beautiful picture of you in, I don't know, um, coastal Maine or in San Diego, it's great for
yeah.
someone to see that.
Yeah. So please, again, we have about a little over 15 minutes left. I see some comments. I'm going to grab them now, but any questions or comments for Kareem, you can drop them in the chat. I have a question from Deborah about the recording. Yeah, it'll be available. It's streaming right now live on YouTube, and it'll be recorded there and available on demand. Let me make sure I didn't have missed anything. Barb Pete, she says when she lived in the Midwest, she sent out a pack of hot chocolate and Caribbean and Mexico brochures. She put a note that says, "Enjoy a hot beverage while you plan your next beach vacation." And she said it worked well.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's
Yeah.
great. Really
Um,
great.
Sandra says she sent out postcards, was prompted several clients to get in touch. It didn't generate any new business, but it did remind clients that you were still out there.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let me see if there's any other ones. Denise says that she uses daily birthday voice messages. She says, I can't emphasize this enough. I've received so much business from startup doing these. It builds wonderful relationships. And Denise actually spoke about that on the session she did with me. She sort of walks us through that. So if you want to get into that, go ahead and watch that old session. But yeah, you can send voice messages on your iPhone fairly easily, and it does. It seems difficult to ignore people's voices as opposed to people's
Mhm.
text.
Yep.
So I think we have one more, Cream. Is that right? One more we want to go over?
We went through five, but I can, give you a
Okay.
six that's, aligning with what you had just spoken about, and tying it into social media,
Yeah.
because I know every day we get the list from Facebook and also from whatever CRM we're using of all the birthdays that are happening that day. And I find that, again, 2 minutes taking the time to send those birthday and anniversary greetings goes really a long way. And those are often opportunities to ask questions, keeping it brief, but are you getting to celebrate your birthday this year? Hoping this is a birthday where you're able to get together with loved ones. Have you been out yet? And again, when you keep it brief like that, often you'll get the engagement and the response right away.
Hmm.
Um, Something else I've done, which I always feel a bit silly doing, but always get responses to, is videos, just recording a brief video for someone. And I've done it for birthdays, but I've also done it just for thinking of you, where you're in a location or even just, where you are, and say, thinking about you, hope you're doing well, and just send that 20 or 30-second video to people. It really, again, it's a unique type of interaction that they're maybe not used to getting,
Yeah.
and doesn't take a lot of time.
Well, one thing I just want to mention, I do have a few more questions to wrap up, but just going off of that, Kareem, there is a company called Cameo, which you can pay for celebrities to shoot little videos to you to send to friends or family too. And the
Oh.
cost of that is higher than you doing it yourself. But if you do have a very high net worth client or luxury client that you want to sort of give them a more high worth message, that's something to look into for a lot of the advisors on the call too.
Mhm. Yeah, Dan, I also think with those of us that are already traveling, which I think is most of us, if you already have a blog, or if you can do a blog, or even if it's just a journal entry, the more you can do where it's something that you can post to your website or post somewhere that you can share, the better. Because again, that becomes something that's archived and chronicled that you can share. And there are many occasions where you can share that sort of content, even if it's not directly related to a particular client. So if you just were in Arkansas at the Crystal Bridges Museum and you saw a painting that really inspired you, and you do a blog about it, sending that on to someone saying, thinking about you, wondering how you've been doing. I've been starting to get out and travel. Recently, I went to Arkansas to Crystal Bridges, thought you might be interested in this blog that I put together. Here's the link. Would love to catch up with you sometime in the coming weeks.
Okay. And so I mean, we've gotten a lot of great stuff from you, Kareem. We've gotten a lot of stuff, great stuff in the chat. So I have a few questions to sort of put everything in context. But what I'm getting from everyone is that being unique, being personal, having your message personalized, and also being fairly brief is going to be the bedrock of getting responses back from these kind of communications.
Correct.
Yeah. So let me ask about something along those lines now, because we mentioned being brief, and we mentioned email too. And my question is basically, when is too many emails to your client too much? When in your experience have you felt that maybe you're putting people off just because of the amount of messages that might be going into someone's email inbox? Whether that's a personal message, whether that's regular marketing messages that you have scheduled to be sent out to your clients. Is there ever a point where you think maybe too much is too much?
I I think we all try to be very sensitive to that, and I certainly am. I think if you really get to the point of two emails and certainly three, and you're not getting any response, I think, just take a break. I wouldn't say give up. I'm never one to give up, but at that point, I think maybe you just need to wait a month or maybe even a quarter to loop back with that prospect or client. And a lot of times it's not personal and it's just folks are really busy and people are dealing with lots of different consequences of the pandemic. I've certainly had instances with very good, solid clients, very recently actually, where I've not heard back for maybe a month or so. And then I get a note saying, we finally got away and, spent time with family, or just been so busy cleaning up our house or moving. So I think you just have to be patient and space out the time. If you're seeing that if you're developing a frequency with no response, I'd just take a break and then try again in minimum a month, but probably a few months.
Okay. And I mean, do you set a regular schedule with your clients? Do you set reminders, things like that, to contact them, if you haven't been in touch with them, or is it something that you're doing when you have the time and when you're taking care of sort of your daily emails in the morning?
So I do have a system. I try to just roll through everyone that's in the database over whatever that period of time may be. So each week I try to do at least 10 to 15 touch points. It may be less if it's a very busy week with people that are traveling or planning trips, and I'm spending a lot of time on that. So maybe I'll only get to 5 or something like that. But I try each week to cycle through, and
Okay.
it works out well, because also hopefully people are going to be reaching out to us proactively too. So it does go both ways, where sometimes someone may be further down on your list just in terms of how you're sorting through it, and they'll reach out to you first, and then you move on to the next. But I do try to be systematic about it while also balancing what the day-to-day responsibilities are.
And I mean, do things change when you've had a regular client for a long time? Are you more comfortable not reaching out to someone, maybe aside from you having a relationship with them and wanting to reach out to them, but specifically for your business, when you have a regular client who's is loyal to you, do you ever take that for granted and maybe slow down on the communications?
I try my best not to.
Okay.
And there are several advisor colleagues, one in particular I'm thinking about, that always says, don't make sure you pay as much attention to the clients that make the least amount of noise. So because someone's that model client, I think you really still need to make sure you're giving them the same level of engagement as someone who maybe is much more high maintenance or much more demanding. So I try my best not to take those folks for granted and to think about the people that really I haven't heard from that are closer, but at least doing something. And when the relationships are that close, uh, that's where you could even send a text. Sometimes it's just a text message thinking of you, 3 lines, or you can even just do a voice memo and send it over. Or you take a picture of a sunset and you email it, something like that. But I try to always keep those folks, the more silent ones, as top of mind as those that are more challenging.
Yeah, that's a great rule. I've never heard that before. Pay attention to the ones who are the most quiet. That's really something interesting to think about.
Yes, yeah.
So we have a question from Michelle Kareem, and this is about you because we're talking about this sort of communication, and you're speaking about how much you do it on a regular basis. Michelle wants to know if you have people on your team who help you with this kind of stuff, or is this all strictly on your shoulders to keep this communication going?
Well, I mean, I do have an assistant that helps monitor what the touch points are and keeping track of that. So I'll copy her on emails, and we'll have team meetings once a week where we'll talk about, what we're doing, who we're engaging with. But for the most part, I am doing it all myself.
Yeah.
And I think it is really important that you do it yourself, that you take the time and that you make it personal, because the clients and the prospects really do realize that and value that, and they know the difference between having someone else follow up on your behalf and doing it personally.
Yeah.
And they also realize how busy we are. So I would say the busier you are, the more you take the time to do those personal touch points, it really speaks volumes because those clients and prospects really know. I know that person's really busy. I know that she was just on a cruise for 2 weeks, and the fact that I got a personal note from her during that time, it just speaks volumes. It really makes them feel like they're valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It does. And again, we spoke about sort of what's important with this kind of communication. And it does seem like being personal and being unique to each client is going to be important because we're all regular users of email and messagings and things like that. So it's fairly obvious, I think, for everyone to recognize when things are mass communicated as opposed to when things are sent for a specific reason from a specific individual.
Yeah, and I think we all look, especially with email, to see if there are other people copied. And when we get those, seriously, and when we
Yeah.
get those emails where there are like 40 people copied, it's like file, you feel like that's not important
Yeah.
or as important as when it's just you and it's brief and it's personal. You're like, wow, okay, this is really meaningful.
Yeah. So I want to give you a couple minutes to wrap up, Kareem. But first, I want to just remind everyone if anyone has any more questions, I can grab them and we can get to them at the very end. But at first, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. I know it's sort of the beginning of a school season here in the U.S. on the north in the Northeast at least, and I know people must be incredibly busy, especially with travel picking up. So I want to say thank you so much for joining us. Again, this session is going to be recorded and available on demand, as are all of our other sessions. And to you, Kareem, again, thank you so much for joining me. Again, I know you're busy yourself, but if you have any last thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
I think I'd just like to reiterate, coming from a place personally where you have a sincere interest and desire and caring to get to know your clients, to get to know these prospects, and to listen and to share. I think if you can really come to that place, and we're attracted to different people, different types of people. So with some clients or prospects, it may take it's different. It may take a while, but I think if you really focus on that and take the time and then find the best way to reach out for that person, whether it's a text or a call or inviting them to dinner, it really just pays the dividends later.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. And then finding a schedule and a time that works for you, because again, we're all so busy and it's easy, especially if you have an insane week where you have multiple people traveling or you're getting a lot of requests that you want to put it to the side. But I'd say every week, just find some time, even if it's 5 minutes, 5 people, that you just do a little something to just stay top of mind, to stay engaged, to keep the dialogue open.
Yeah, it's interesting, Kareem. Before the call, we were speaking about learning a musical instrument, and my concern was not being able to fit that into my regular schedule and not being able to be consistent with it. And that seems to be the rule for everything right now. I mean, we had a social media expert on a few months ago, and her rule was 10 minutes, 10 interactions on your posts a day. Just it doesn't matter how powerful your messages are, just make sure you do it. And it seems to be the same thing for client communication.
Yeah, and we're all on our devices constantly checking Facebook or whatever it is. So just go through your friend feed, and we all have those people where we're like, who's that? Where did I meet them? But take a minute and just say, uh, thinking about you. Hope things are going well. Just take a minute, look at their page, send them a note. I've done quite a bit of that during the pandemic too, and have had some really great reconnections with people, which is fun.
Yeah. Well, again, Kareem, I want to thank you again. This is your second time on this series, and hopefully in the future, where we'll be able to have a hat trick and get you on a third time. To everybody else on the call, I know we were on a irregular schedule the last couple of months, but we're actually going back to every 2 weeks, every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. So please look out for reminders, and I hope to see you all joining us again here regularly very soon. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your week and great weekend. And hopefully I'll see you all back here in a couple of weeks.
Super. Thanks so much, Dan, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. You know how to reach both of us, so we're
Yeah,
on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook, we're on all of those things. So let's keep the dialogue going.
exactly. Thank you. Thanks again, Kareem, and thanks to everybody.
Bye bye.